But we love stories, don't we? We love stories in which somebody transforms. It's like so much part of our culture. Our first biology lesson is always the hungry caterpillar, isn't it? It's like we go, wow, like this little tiny caterpillar then goes on this huge eating binge and becomes this beautiful butterfly. We love stories about transformation. And this story of Saul is one of the great stories of transformation in the whole Bible. Saul was really zealous. He was a Jewish man. He was really passionate for his religion. He was absolutely determined to persecute and put an end to this message that Jesus, this man that the Romans had crucified, was the Jewish Messiah, the Jewish king. And so everywhere Saul went, he was determined to find people spreading that message. He would arrest them, he would put them in prison, or worse. And on one particular occasion, Saul hears that there are a group of Christians meeting in a city called Damascus. I guess a little bit like we are meeting here today. And so he sets off with a group of his men with the intention of going to Damascus, finding this group of Christians, rounding them up, arresting them, taking them to Jerusalem, and putting them on trial for spreading these rumors about Jesus being the Messiah. He wanted them at least imprisoned, and at the beginning of the reading it says that he was breathing out murderous plots. If he could have them put to death, then he would do that. That was the type of person that he was. But on his way to Damascus, something unexpected happens. Something that Saul could not possibly have imagined might happen to him. As he's traveling along the road, all of a sudden there is this bright light. It's so bright that he falls to the floor. It's so bright that he's blind for 3 days following this experience. Someone called Ananias has to pray for him in order to restore his sight. And as he's lying there on the dirt of the Damascus road, not able to see anything, he hears a voice. And the voice says, "Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me?" And Saul in his confusion says, "Who are you, Lord?" And the answer, I think, must have been completely unexpected. It must have been something that Saul could not possibly have imagined would be the answer. The voice says to him, "I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting." He has an encounter with Jesus, and that encounter with Jesus completely transforms his life. He goes from being the person that persecutes the church to being the person who is the most influential, prolific church planter that the early church had ever known. The words that he spoke about Jesus from that point forwards became so important to the Christians of the known world that they now form a significant part of the New Testament. His life was completely transformed because he met with Jesus. And you know, the Gospels and the book of Acts, they are full of stories like that, aren't they? They are full of stories in which somebody meets Jesus, and as a result of that, their life is transformed. There's the story of the disciples on the boat in the middle of the sea, the Lake Galilee. There's a great storm and they're terrified, but it's the presence of Jesus. It's his word, it's his authority that brings calm and peace to the storm and to their hearts. When Jesus encounters the leper or the sick person in the Gospels, he brings healing to that person. We've heard stories of healing here this morning. When he meets the leper and he meets the ostracized, he creates a community that would welcome and love them. He brings transformation to their situations. When Jesus meets people who are held captive, maybe by patterns of life, thinking about Matthew, the tax collector, or maybe by evil spirits, thinking about the demoniac that he meets on the shore of Lake Galilee, Jesus brings freedom. He brings wholeness. When he meets people who lack faith, he brings faith. When he meets people who are confused, he brings clarity. Even when he meets people who have died prematurely, his presence brings life. And people rise from the dead. We could go on, couldn't we? We could list story after story, just from the Bible, of people who encountered Jesus and their lives were transformed. And actually, if we went around this little group gathered here today and we shared our story, for many of us, our stories will at some point feature a moment where we ourselves encountered Jesus and our life was transformed. The amazing thing is that you don't have to go to the Damascus Road or Jerusalem to encounter Jesus. Claire mentioned that she was at New Wine. There was a group of us, a small group at New Wine over a couple of weeks ago. And one night there was a story shared of a little boy who had, and he was there, saw him, a little boy who had gone to New Wine completely deaf. And on one night, he was only little, he'd never heard anything. And on one night, just an ordinary person prayed for him to hear. And the next evening, his parents gave a testimony to say that today he has heard for the first time. Incredible. Just an ordinary person, just like you, just like me, just praying for a little boy. And that little boy encounters Jesus and his life is transformed. Amazing story. And there are lots of other stories. And we've heard stories today of transformation. You don't have to go to New Wine to hear those stories. That's the good news, isn't it? That encounters with Jesus can happen anywhere, and transformation can come to situations and to lives anywhere. Those stories happen on the pavement. Those stories happen in the classroom. Those stories happen in the office. Those stories happen on the dog walk. Those stories happen in our kitchens or in our bedrooms or in our lounges. Those meetings with Jesus happen everywhere. They transform us and they transform situations. And so this morning, as we just hear that well-known story of Saul, that remarkable transformation that Jesus brought to him, we're reminded that sometimes those encounters, they happen when we're not expecting them. Saul was not expecting that Damascus Road moment. We're also aware that they happen when we seek them, when we seek God. We can have those moments, those encounters with Jesus. But I guess this morning I just want us to take a moment just to invite Jesus to come into the situations of our lives. Are there situations in our lives today where actually we need to know the transforming power and presence of Jesus? It might be a physical thing. It might be something that where we need healing from. It might be a situation where we need to know peace or clarity or direction or provision or change. But I just want us to take a moment, just in the stillness, just to welcome the presence of Jesus and say, Jesus, I bring this situation to you. Would you bring transformation to it? Would you bring your transformation to the situation of my life? So let's just be still for a moment and just in the quietness, just bring before the Lord those situations that we're aware of, where we just long for Jesus to step in and to bring change and to bring transformation. Let's just be still for a few moments.